Hello and welcome back to the Business Growth Club. This is your weekly edition from us, and in this week's video we're going to be looking at how businesses that target other businesses can profile that audience. Now this is the second part of a profiling series, how we actually get a really specific target market. We go from mass market to specific profile market. Now we've already looked at lots of the concepts of this when we looked at the earlier videos when we looked at how we target consumers. Today we're going to look at how we do that for businesses that sell to businesses. Now the targeting for B2B isn't quite as precise as it is for consumers, simply because the business world is smaller. There's only 4 million businesses, not 62 million consumers, but it's still crucial, and you can still build a very targeted area, a very targeted list. So let's have a look at how we would do that for business to business. So we're going to pop over to the internet. We're going to use a profiling tool. It's the same one we use for consumers. It's selector based. They're the people I use. As always, I've got no financial endorsement from them. I'm recommending them because I use them. I find them a very good tool. And what they're for is they're for a business that wants to target very precisely the type of people they want to work with for direct contact campaigns. Now as we create this list on the internet, I'm going to show you the various options, and we're going to use the Business Growth Club as an example of how we would build a list. Obviously you're going to have different target markets, different elements are going to be important to you, but I think if we use an example it helps, like we did with consumers when we looked at a kind of fantasy furniture store. So we're going to be looking at that for businesses that target businesses. So if you're a business and you sell to other businesses, you'll know that you don't sell to all of the 4 million businesses. You know you have a sweet spot. You know you've looked at your customers, or you've done an analysis of who would be the right people to buy it. And now we're going to look at how you can choose different variables. So I'm going to jump over to the internet and show you how we use the targeting tool. So here I am on Selector Base. As I say, that's the list broker I recommend. And what we're going to do is we're going to click on Business Lists. If you don't have an account, you have to register for an account, and this is how you profile and buy the data. And then we want to let's get started on creating a list. Now lots of the screens here actually look very similar to what we looked at for consumers, so I'm not going to do all of that zooming in and really explaining the detail. The process is the same. So you know, you don't need to look at this too much. You need to just listen to the process really. So the first question whenever we're profiling a list is, what's our geography? What area do we want to target? Now as always you've got two options. You can do a radius, so I could say I'm based in London and I want a 10-mile radius of London, or I can pick particular postcode areas. So I could say I want just Durham postcode areas, or just Birmingham, or I want all of the ones in the southeast or the southwest or whatever. So area number one when you're building a direct contact list of the best type of prospects is to say, well, where would my prospects be? And to do that. Now for the list we're going to build for the Business Growth Club, we're just going to look, for the sake of argument, we're going to look in Newcastle. We're going to look at NE, just because it's going to be easier just to look at one particular area. So we would target, I guess, the whole country, but we're just going to pretend we're northeast. So for this list we're going to target NE. You would have all different postcodes, maybe a drive time or maybe a postcode. As always, I tend to recommend postcode areas work better than a radius, because a radius can be quite imprecise for all sorts of reasons, whereas a postcode, it's worth doing that. So done. We click on done, we've got a postcode area. So the list we're going to build is just in that particular area. Now we go into the fun stuff. We actually start to say, what information do I want to build? What type of list? Question number one is whether or not I want a telephone number. Now, when you're doing marketing to consumers, not often do you want to telephone them. Telephone marketing to consumers is effective, but it's difficult. With business to business, it's a lot more popular. So actually, you're more likely to want a telephone number. So I can select, I only want records with a telephone number. Now you can select records without a telephone number. I'm yet to figure out why one would want to do that. And I'm actually going to say exclude people who are part of the telephone preference service, because it's illegal to contact them. So always make sure you do that, by the way. You don't want to get into trouble. I think you can be fined £5,000 if you violate this law. So whenever you build your list and you're saying, yes, I want telephone numbers, make sure that you include the ones that are registered for telephone preference check service. So that's question number one. Question number two is, do I want their email address? Now, I'm going to click all records with or without an email address, just because the number of records with an email address is probably quite low, and if they have an email address I'll buy it, but I don't want to exclude people. So those with an email address I'll send them an email, but if I select just email only, particularly in an area like Newcastle, you'll probably end up with about 50 businesses, and it's not really big enough. If you're doing it nationally and you want to do maybe a direct mail campaign followed up by emails, then you might want to combine both of those. The next one is the contact and job function. This is brilliant. Let's say I just want financial people. I've got lots of different options here, but I just want the person who's responsible for financial decision making. Or maybe I want marketing, or marketing and sales. Other options include medical and scientific, or clergy, or clerical, or administration, IT, purchasing, all of this sort of stuff. I'm going to say I want a senior decision maker for our Business Growth Club list. But if you're in IT, you can pick just people who are responsible for IT. The next option is industry categories. Now this is where it gets brilliant. Here you can choose on their SIC code, that's your industry category, the one that you declare each year in your annual return to Companies House. This is the different ones, and as you can see on the screen here, it's all the SIC codes in the world. Now here's a little tip. I would exclude SIC codes. I'd actually look at Yellow Pages categories. This is a common sense category where you say, I only want a certain type of business. So it might be that you want to sell to solicitors, and you click Find Solicitors. When you select legal, you tend to get legal people who aren't just solicitors. You might get will writers and people like that. So the SIC codes aren't very good. The Yellow Pages, as a human has said, these are solicitors. So I'm going to put solicitors in there. I'm also going to put accountants, because I'm going to say that would be good. And I'm also going to put, let's say, marketing. Like I say, you will have different industries that you know will work. And I'm just going to add some random ones here because I've not got time to build a proper list. But I do want a reasonable size list. So you would go through and you would type in all of the different industries that you believe would work well for you. Like I say, I'm just going to add some random businesses here, but you would type in all of the ones. So if you believe that dentists would be really good because it works, your product works really well with dentists. It's not going to find dentists, so I'm going to have to put dental in. You play around with this. Dental will have all of those. Now you've got two options actually. You can type it in, or if you've got the time, you can just go through the list one by one. It will take you about half an hour, but it might be the best half an hour you spend on your business, going through every Yellow Pages category and saying, okay, well, would an aerobics company help me? No, they wouldn't. However, an advertising agency would, because I sell stationery, and aerobics probably don't need stationery, but advertising, they probably do a lot of stationery. So this, ignore SIC codes, look at Yellow Pages. It's really worth looking into this. Remember, what we're building here is not a mass market list. We're looking at a list of the people who are most likely to use our business. So like I said, for the Business Growth Club, we might imagine it's solicitors and advertising agencies and other people like that. I picked some random ones just because I want to build a list. However, you would go through this and you would find the ones that will work for you. So if you know that tradespeople don't make good prospects for you, don't select them. But if you find tradespeople make great prospects for your business, include them. Yeah, that's what you need to do. You need to go through this. And as I say, I've done this with, I don't know how many people, maybe 100 businesses, and I know it takes about half an hour. I know half an hour can seem like a long time. Might be the best half an hour you'll ever spend. I'd also give you another tip. When you're actually creating this list, make sure you write down the industry sectors that you're targeting as well as adding them to this profiling tool. Type them up, save them somewhere safe on your computer because you'll be returning to that list. Don't use it just on here because you might lose the data. Employees. Right, okay. This can say you can target a business on their size of employees. So any size, which is what we're going to go for the Business Growth Club, because we imagine any size business, because we have businesses with very large employee bases and businesses that are sort of one-person businesses. However, you might decide, say you do team building workshops, as somebody I was speaking to recently, and they might find that their target market is larger companies. So you can go 1 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 to 19, 20 to 49, 50 to 99, 100 to 200, or 200 plus. Or you can actually say more than 20, but less than 100. So maybe you're a stationery company and you want people with 20 or more employees because it's indicative of the size of business, but you don't want it to be too big because you can't compete with the big suppliers, but you provide a nice local friendly service, and that's your USP. So you want businesses from 20 to 100. And you can select more as well. If you wanted to do all businesses, say 6 to 10, 11 to 19 and 20 to 40, you could do that. For our list, we're just going to do all. But it's really useful employee sizes, particularly if you are, say, a HR company and you want HR managers. Well, it's probably bigger companies, isn't it? Annual turnover. One something I'll tell you about annual turnover, and this is another trick of the trade, is it's not as precise as employee size. Generally, when people qualify these lists, there's a margin for error, and employee size tends to be quite small. Turnover, for some reason, it seems a bit ropey, and I don't know, especially below the audit threshold of 6.5 million. You tend to get quite inaccurate turnover figures. So you can still profile on turnover, but just be cautious and maybe compare turnover with employee size and combine the two or something like this. But it's still a legitimate area. So you can say a turnover of anything to anything. So it could be, I want businesses over 100,000 but less than 1 million, because you know that's what your target market is. It could be any type of business. Remember with this, you're looking for the businesses you really want to work with. I can't stress that enough. I know you'll probably happily cash a check from any business, but it's the ones who are most likely to buy. And remember, you do that by looking at your existing customers in your 80-20 and looking at your best customers, or sitting down using this tool and saying, well, who's most likely to buy? Now you might say, and I'm going to do this at the Business Growth Club, I know that any business could benefit, but I know it's a business that's turning over from 1 to 90,000, 90 to 400, 400 to 1 million, 1.25 million, 1 to 5 million, and 5 to 10 million. I know that we don't have many customers over 10 million. They tend to work on a one-to-one basis from the Business Growth Club. So I know that anything up to 10 million is probably going to be a good category for me. So whilst I'll cash anybody's check, any business would, they're the people I know would make the best customers for me. Head office. This is important for some businesses. Does their head office need to be up here? Now, for some people that's crucial. For me, I know that people make local decisions, so that's not going to be a problem. But for some businesses, you need to talk to a head office or a branch or a single site. New businesses. This can actually be something where you can profile whether or not it's a new business or a relocating business. Now, this is quite important because you might be the type of organisation where you want to work with new businesses. If it's any business, just leave this blank, but maybe you've got a great product for new businesses. So you might be a PR agency and you target newly formed businesses and you send them some direct mail and do some telephone marketing to them to promote some press releases to get their business known and to get them in the newspapers and in their trade press, etc., etc. So if new businesses are a target market, look at this area. Now, Selectabase do provide a new business formation service where they will send you every month a spreadsheet for your defined area, so for your postcode area, all of the new businesses formed in that area. Now, I've bought this data before and I've made lots of sales off using that data, and I've bought it from Selectabase and it's very good. It is more expensive than normal data, I'll tell you that, but actually it's quite valuable information. And we know that if we speak to people in their newly formed businesses, we can get in there and have a relationship, and we've sold to, I don't know the number offhand, but quite a lot of them. So if target marketing for you to new businesses is really crucial and they'd be really good, speak to Selectabase and say, well, could I have a 12-month subscription for all of the new businesses every month? So in February, you'll receive an email saying, here are all the new businesses that have been formed in your postcode areas in January. For some people, that's gold dust information. One tip if you're doing that, you'll be better off sending them a letter or a postcard or whatever, a direct mailer, as soon as they're formed, so as soon as you get the spreadsheet, and get the telemarketing in straight away. Don't leave it, because other people are buying these lists. There are other smart marketers out there, other people listening to this. Some of your competitors might know this or might be listening to this. Not many people will, but some will. So you need to get in there and you need to do it early. So if you are to do this, make sure you're set up. Maybe if you're considering a campaign like this, maybe talk to me and I'll talk over the options and give you some pointers, because it's not easy to make this work, but it can be very fruitful, and like I say, it has been for us. For Business Growth Club, we'll include new businesses, but not that important. Legal status. Is it a limited company or non-limited? For Business Growth Club, it doesn't matter, But let's say you're a lawyer and you want to help limited companies with a tax loophole or a legal loophole. You only want to target limited companies. Or it might be sole traders. Maybe you've got a particular offer for sole traders. Then you'd or partnerships. So you'd click that box. Business Growth Club, it doesn't matter. Age of business. 1 to 5 years, 6 to 10 years, 11 to 20 years, or over 21 years. Now, it might be for you want to target people who've been in existence for a very long time, or you might want to target new businesses. Now, lots of people say to me, particularly in the marketing and sales world, that they do well with reasonably established businesses. So maybe you 6 to 10 years and 11 to 20 years will be a good option. For a Business Growth Club, I'm not going to select anything, but for some people that will be important. Small office or home office, that's whether or not a business is being run from that. So maybe you've got some great office furniture for home offices or something, so you could say, I only want those types of people. By the way, if you leave most of these blank, it will do any. So it will do people operating from or not from a home office. It'll include everybody. But if I didn't want people operating from a home office, maybe because I provide office cleaning services, so I want people with a real office, I click no. I'll click any for Business Growth Club because it doesn't matter. You could do this from home or from somewhere else. Not for profit, I'm going to exclude them. Because whilst I do work with charities, it tends to be on a consultancy basis and we tend not to have a Business Growth Club because it's quite geared around businesses. But for you, it might be that you want just not-for-profit. You can target just charities if you want to, a non-for-profit organisation. So I'll exclude them. Premises type. Now this is really useful. This is where the real power of targeted marketing comes in. Because you can say, I just want shops or other retail outlets, or I just want schools and educational establishments. So let's say you sell only to schools. You could tick schools and it would work brilliantly because you'd only get the schools in that area. Or you want warehouses or sports, leisure and tourism. If you have more precise targeting than this, you can often speak to people like Selector Base, speak to your list provider and say, oh, I just want people who are business parks. I bought a business park list recently for a client and they said, yes, we'll find all of the business parks. So it's a very weird request, but it happened to be for a client, but for a very good reason. And that works really well. It's even got places of worship. So, it might be that you do, stained glass windows or something, I don't know, and you sell just to churches and places of worship. That would work really well. So it works quite powerfully. Shops and retail are the top option there. If you just sell to shops and retail, maybe you're a retail guru and you want to help these people, well, this is the power of target marketing. You don't have to just guess what businesses would be in retail. A sort of estimated net worth band. This is another one a bit like turnover. It's a bit ropey, and I would avoid it. If this is important to your business, if you're like a financial advisor, then maybe you need to look at this because you want a business with a decent net worth. But validating the net worth of a business is very difficult. You can choose anything from 1 to 99,000 or 99,000 to $250,000 upwards, over 20 million. So for some people this might be important, but for most businesses, probably people outside the financial legal establishment, this is probably less important. Certainly for Business Growth Club it doesn't matter. It is a bit of a ropey measure, that one. Number of directors. You might need customers that are 2 or more directors. Maybe you provide business coaching to multi-director businesses and you help them work together. So maybe you're great at executive leadership coaching, so you want people who are just directors of businesses. Now if it's a one-person director business, even if it's got 1 million employees, well, you can't coach them, can you? If you're good at chairing board meetings, getting boards more efficient, making executives perform, you want people with maybe 6 or more. So you click that box. For Business Growth Club it doesn't matter. But for some people that would be really good. I've met quite a lot of people who help executives perform better at that kind of board level. And they're sending stuff out to businesses that they guess will have big boards. Like legal companies, solicitors tend to have multiple partners. Well, with this you could say 2 or more, and then you can help them work together. Profit and loss is another one. Any financial measure is kind of a bit more ropey. But it says people who are making a profit or a loss. Now for some businesses, maybe you're a turnaround coach. So you help businesses that are making a loss to turn their business around. Then you'd want to click that. For Business Growth Club, it's anybody. The next area is credit pre-screen. Now for a lot of people this isn't important. But let's say your services are dependent on a good credit rating. Maybe you provide industrial machinery. and you say, I only want people who would pass a credit check, because there's no point prospecting people who'll buy your product but they fail the credit check. So you can tick yes. Business Growth Club, it's not applicable. But for some businesses, particularly leasing businesses and people like that, that would be a major area. Number of trading sites. Maybe you want multiple trading sites. So maybe you help organisations with their logistics chain inter-site. So you might want people with 2 sites, but you don't really help people with more than 20. So you could do that. For the Business Growth Club, it's not really an area that's important. But for some businesses that could be useful. Growth in turnover. That's interesting. You might want people who've had more than a 10% growth, less than a 1% growth. So you might be targeting just growing businesses. I don't think that's important for Business Growth Club, but maybe you're a tax planning organisation and you want to target businesses with growing profits because you can help them to take their money tax effectively and reinvest it or take it offshore or engage in tax planning or trust planning or pension planning or whatever. So if a growth in turnover is important to you. Growth in employees. Maybe you help people, say, recruitment. So this would be brilliant, wouldn't it? I want people who've had less than a 1% growth and more than a 10% growth of employees, because you want to go in there and do your recruitment agency services. So how useful is this? If you're a recruitment agency, maybe for many years you've just been buying lists of call centres and big organisations because you imagine they have a high turnover. Now you can use these tools and say, I just want businesses who are turning over their staff, who are growing in their employee figures. How valuable is this? Do you see what I mean when I say you don't need a mass marketing list? No longer do you need to say, I want a list of just businesses out there. You can say, I want this perfect business. And of course, if you overqualify it and you end up with a very small number, just go back and tweak it. And don't be quite so selective. But, often when you're really selective and you get a list that's a reasonable size, every single name on that list will be people you'd love to do business with. And I always believe with marketing, you should only be talking to people that you really want to do business with. Why talk to anybody else? Growth in pre-tax profits, again, that's the same as growth in turnover, really. Pre-tax profits, it could be for people who are growing in turnover but aren't making a profit, maybe because of good tax planning, and this is probably only for people in the financial sector. It's quite niche, but that could help you. Date of latest accounts. I can't imagine who this would be useful for. Maybe financial providers that want to help people file their accounts. I don't know. Maybe you want to target people who are within 3 months due of their accounts or something. If you did that, you might be better getting companies' house data, but there you are. Maybe for someone you'll find a use of that. And possible multiples. Exclude possible multiples. That just kind of, there could be different companies out there that cross over. So that's alwaise a good box to tick, although you tend to have quite little crossover in these lists. So what have we done? We've actually we've really profiled this and we've built a very specific list. I know I said it was for the Business Growth Club and I've kind of made a few bits up as I've gone along the way just to populate the list, but you see how if you put aside, I would say 1 hour, and you went through this and you really drilled down the detail as to who you really wanted to target, how effective would this be for you? It would be very effective. You'd have a list of people, as I say, who all want to do business with you. It's probably the best hour you could spend in your business. Now, one final something before you click count and see how big the list, this very profile, very specific list that you've built is you can click on exclusions. If you're ordering a lot of data, you might want to exclude previous orders. So this will tell you the different orders. Now here it's telling me that not long ago I bought a marketing manager's list. So proof that I do walk the walk here, and I do build marketing lists very specifically. There it was a campaign where I wanted to target marketing managers for a particular function. You can find your other orders on there. So once you created an account with somebody like Selectabase and you're ordering lots of data from them, you could say, well, I want to buy a new list, however I want to exclude the people in a certain area. Now I'll give you an example when this is useful. Earlier this week I was ordering some data for a client. We'd very closely targeted all the businesses in a very small geographical area as a pilot, and it had worked really well, so we wanted all the businesses in a larger area. However, I didn't want to cross over because we'd already targeted some of them. So I said, I want all of the businesses in this geographical area, but I want to exclude the ones we got in our first order. So it gave me just the new ones, and it's a really useful tool. You only need to worry about it once you're ordering lots of data. But I can almost guarantee that once you go through this exercise, as I say, set an hour or so aside, and you really go through this and you really profile your list and you're really specific about it, you'll have every single name of people you really want to do business with. Do some decent marketing to them, which we're going to look at in next week's video, how you use this information, this targeted list you're building. I can almost guarantee that once you deliver the marketing with that, it will work so well, you'll be coming back again soon to buy more lists, because targeted marketing lists work excellently. So look at exclusions. I've clicked count, and it's going to tell me the number of businesses that we could target for the Business Growth Club. Now it's telling me in Newcastle that meet our criteria, there's 6,220. That's actually quite a high number. I mean, there's about 17,000 businesses in Newcastle, so that's quite high. So if I wanted to, I could go back and I could be even more precise. So maybe I could exclude even more people if I wanted to. So I could be even more aggressive. Interestingly, it's telling me that there's only 175 email addresses. So notice I said what you need to do with email addresses, unless it's a national campaign, is be flexible. Otherwise I would have ended up with 175 records, and 175 for email marketing is just not high enough. So for Business Growth Club, I could have built a list or purchased a list for 6,220. Now let's have a look how much this would be if I was to buy this list. So it's telling me that outside of VAT it would cost me £831 to buy this list of over 6,000 businesses. So if I'd done this properly, and I'd actually really targeted a list of a Business Growth Club for our marketing campaigns, and I found these were the 6,000 businesses in the area that I really want to be doing business with, it'd be well worth paying £831. That's what, just over 13p a record via my mental arithmetic. I hope that's right. So that's pretty good, isn't it? That's not a bad figure. Of course, if it would have been 1,000, it would be much less. But I think £831 to buy a list of people, all of whom would make brilliant prospects, I think we do a good marketing campaign to those people. So that brings today's video to a conclusion. Like I said, we've picked up the baton where we've looked at how you target consumers, and we've looked at how it works for business-to-business organisations. Hopefully you found it useful. Now the homework, if you will, between now and then is to maybe pop along, find a list broker. Like I say, I highly recommend Selectabase. They're very good, and this targeting tools absolutely brilliant. They're good people to do business with. But find your own if you want to. But you do quite well with Selectabase. There's a link to them below this video. Go and set up an account and actually play around with this and build a list of the people that would be really good for your business, and have a look at the number. If you're struggling, always, you can contact me, and I'm happy to help you, or one of the team will be happy to help you. And then next week in the video, we'll look at how you actually profile and contact these people. So I hope it's been useful. Thanks very much for listening. You'll hear from me again in a week's time. Between now and then, have an absolutely brilliant time in business. Goodbye for now.